Mrs. Whitaker, in a quiet countryside, lived three staunch friends. Miss Oliver the owl, Herman the cat, and Georgie the gentle little ghost. Every night, Herman would prowl after his favorite mouse. Miss Oliver would hoot in her favorite tree. And Georgie would waken. Creep the stairs. And squeak the parlor door. While Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker would yawn and know it was time for bed. So everything went peacefully and properly until one time Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker had a notion to visit the city. They decided to take Herman along. Miss Oliver could not imagine Herman going without her and left her favorite tree. As for Georgie, who but he could make the little ghost sounds that made everyone so comfortable? So he said goodbye to his favorite attic. They went by train, and that was all right. And in the city, Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker took a room in a hotel with a mouse for Herman. And that was all right. And while Miss Oliver couldn't see a tree anywhere, she found herself a perch on a handy flagpole, and that seemed all right. But Georgie had to find something to creak and squeak, of course. The stairs wouldn't do. The doors wouldn't do at all. But the elevator was more than satisfactory because it was an old one. It clickered and clackered and even wheezed a bit the way Georgie ran it. And that was a lucky thing because Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker could sleep better, Herman could prowl better, and Miss Oliver could wake up and say, "Ooh," just as she had always done on her favorite tree. Now, everything would have been just as it should be if it hadn't been for people noticing Miss Oliver in the daytime while she was fast asleep. It was the bellboy who saw her first. He called the doorman. And the doorman, who was very upset, tried to explain it all to the hotel manager. When the hotel manager finally realized what had happened, he called a policeman. The policeman immediately called a fireman. And the fireman gave Miss Oliver to the zoo because she seemed such a rare bird for a city. Luckily, Herman saw it all from the window. He told Georgie, and as soon as it was dark, they went to rescue Miss Oliver. They took the bus. It was the quickest. And they had the top all to themselves. When they got to the zoo, they knew at once it was the right place because they could hear her plainly enough. But where did the sounds come from? The zoo was bigger than they thought, and some of the animals looked ferocious, even though they were fast asleep. She was nowhere in sight. Where could she be? Ah, now that sounded close. This time there could be no mistake, for there was the rare bird cage. And there was poor Miss Oliver. That was a fine how do you do. It would have been very unfortunate, except that the night watchman just happened to be about with the key. Herman immediately thought up a plan. The night watchman was so astonished at what he saw in front of him, he had no idea what was going on behind him. And so Georgie and Herman set Miss Oliver free. And then got right back to the hotel again. So that Georgie could clicker and clacker the old elevator again. Herman could prowl properly again. And Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker could sleep properly again, while Miss Oliver found herself a perch where nobody could bother her again. And she might have gone right on sleeping but for Georgie, who saw that it was time to go back to the country again. He screwed up his courage and climbed all the way to the top to waken her. And so they all took the train and got home lickety-split. Thank goodness we're all home again, said Mr. Whitaker, to which Mrs. Whitaker said, Amen.